Most people glance at headlines and move on, assuming the news is routine, predictable, or already accounted for in their understanding of the world. But beneath the surface, events often carry far more significance than they first appear to. Today, what unfolded between the United States and Canada is exactly that kind of story, subtle, structural, and loaded with implications for years to come. This is not just a political disagreement. It is a signal, a quiet shift in the underpinnings of a long-standing alliance. And if you perceive this as just another news cycle, you risk missing the real story entirely. Tensions had been simmering quietly over months. Public statements were sharper than usual. Trade negotiations faced subtle but persistent obstacles. Headlines began hinting at economic friction, but the implications went far deeper than tariffs or agreements. Every move, every public communication, carried layers of meaning that most casual observers would miss. Canada, often considered one of the most predictable partners of the United States, responded in ways that were deliberate, visible, and calculated. There was no diplomatic fog, no vague language to allow for interpretation. The message was clear. Friction had moved from private backrooms to public discourse, signaling a shift in the alliance's operational reality. The United States and Canada share far more than a border. They share energy networks, supply chains, defense coordination, intelligence partnerships, and financial systems. Disruptions in communication or trust ripple through these structures, affecting industries, consumers, and governments alike. When one partner visibly changes its posture, the other must recalibrate. Trust is the first critical signal. All alliances rely on trust, not merely on signed documents, but on confidence in intentions, consistency in actions, and reliability over time. When public tension arises, trust erodes. Confidence and predictability diminishes, slowing coordination and creating uncertainty in strategic decisions. Predictability itself is the second signal. Businesses, investors, and governments plan based on expectations. Even minor deviations in tone or posture can prompt reconsideration of partnerships, investment strategies, and policy alignment. Markets react to uncertainty, companies hedge their risks, and governments reassess strategic priorities. Invisible disputes between long-standing allies. The echoes extend far beyond the immediate parties. The third signal is global observation. Other nations watch carefully, asking whether commitments remain reliable, whether partnerships can be counted on, and whether strategy is consistent. A visible strain in one relationship can lead to wider realignments, influencing trade, security, and diplomatic strategies across continents. Subtle public cues carry disproportionate weight in a world where alignment is currency. Structural interdependence compounds the stakes. Factories depend on seamless movement across borders. Businesses operate on integrated supply chains. Energy systems must remain stable, and intelligence sharing supports both domestic and global security. Disruption, even if symbolic or strategic, has tangible consequences for operations, costs, and planning. The seemingly abstract tension translates into economic and social realities. Diplomatic language is a tool. Private tension allows maneuverability. Public tension hardens positions and constrains flexibility. Leaders must manage domestic expectations, with concessions appearing weak and compromise politically risky. The result is slower negotiations, narrower options, and greater difficulty reaching solutions. Posture becomes physics, shaping what is possible and what is prohibited in policy and action. Several futures are plausible. One path is quiet stabilization, where back-channel diplomacy softens tone, allows incremental adjustments, and gradually restores alignment. Another is managed distance, reducing automatic alignment while maintaining essential cooperation. The third is economic retaliation, where tariffs and countermeasures ripple through industries and markets. A fourth, structural realignment, sees trade routes, strategic focus, and alliances gradually reconfigured, often in ways that are difficult to reverse. History shows that alliances rarely break loudly. They change quietly. The United States and Canada have maintained a robust partnership for generations, anchored in economic, political, and social ties. Yet visible strain tests the assumptions that have underpinned decades of policy, cooperation, and trust. Every public gesture now carries weight far beyond its immediate context. Global balance does not shift overnight. Power is not only military or economic. Credibility, reliability, and consistency define influence. Once weakened, these attributes take years to rebuild. Conversely, early interventions can preserve alignment and trust if carefully managed. Understanding the mechanics behind public and private tensions reveals why some moments appear ordinary yet have profound, lasting impact. Trade and finance respond predictably to tension. Companies pause investments, diversify supply chains, and seek alternative partnerships. Policy decisions, energy flows, defense planning, and intelligence sharing must adjust to new realities. Even subtle changes in tone can generate cascading effects across industries and borders. Observers must learn to read these cues accurately. Structural interdependence magnifies the consequences. Energy grids that supply cities, manufacturing hubs reliant on cross-border components, and financial systems integrated for efficiency all respond to changes in trust and predictability. The cumulative effect is that what seems like routine tension becomes systemic in its consequences, reshaping incentives, risks, and calculations for every participant. Consider the implications for global signaling. Nations observe, calculate, and adjust. When a trusted partner demonstrates strain, others hedge their bets. They expand trade options, diversify strategic alliances, and explore alternative security arrangements. These adjustments may not be protest. They are precautionary, ensuring resilience in a world of shifting partnerships. Diversification, once started, rarely reverses entirely. Leadership choices, timing, and communication strategy are critical. A single misstep in public posture can create disproportionate consequences, forcing reactive measures, policy recalibration, and economic adjustments. Conversely, carefully managed messaging and nuanced engagement can stabilize tensions without compromising strategic objectives. Power in alliances is maintained through credibility, consistency, and the ability to attract cooperation. Public disputes test these qualities. Friction is unavoidable, but its management determines whether influence grows or erodes. Leaders must anticipate ripple effects beyond the immediate dispute, accounting for markets, industries, global observers, and domestic audiences simultaneously. Even when negotiations continue behind closed doors, visible public cues shape perception. The line between diplomacy and public signaling blurs, with consequences that affect trade, energy security, defense readiness, and economic stability. Each signal influences decision-making at multiple levels, creating feedback loops that magnify the impact of seemingly minor disagreements. Multiple scenarios remain plausible. Quiet resolution allows gradual adjustment and maintains alignment. Managed distance reduces intimacy without catastrophic rupture. Economic measures impose visible costs, influencing both domestic and cross-border stakeholders. Structural realignment reshapes long-term strategic orientation, affecting future partnerships and operational logistics. Every choice carries risk. Public posture influences private negotiation, structural stability, and global perception. Leaders must weigh domestic pressure against international implications, balancing immediate visibility with long-term strategic interest. Misreading signals or miscommunicating intentions can produce cascading effects that reverberate through decades of policy and infrastructure. As observers, understanding subtle shifts requires attention to signals often overlooked in mainstream coverage. Headlines may focus on dramatic statements, but structural change is revealed in tone, timing, posture, and cumulative adjustments. Reading these cues is essential for predicting outcomes, assessing risk, and understanding the trajectory of alliances. Ultimately, this is not just a story of disagreement. It is a story of interdependence, signaling, and strategic management. What appears minor may be profound. What seems routine may be transformative. History will judge not the momentary statements, but the patterns, responses, and adjustments that follow. So, look beyond headlines. Track tone, timing, and posture. Observe public actions and their ripple effects across economies, industries, and alliances. This is the real story. This is the structural shift that may shape relationships, policies, and strategies for years to come. The question now is simple. Is this a temporary fluctuation between strong partners, or the early signal of a deeper, more enduring strategic realignment? Observers, analysts, and decision-makers alike must stay attentive, read the signals, and prepare for outcomes that may unfold quietly, yet profoundly. Every moment counts. Every gesture matters. What may seem ordinary today could define the trajectory of international cooperation for decades. Pay attention, because alliances rarely announce change loudly. They shift quietly, subtly, and systematically. History is written in patterns, not headlines. The real story lies in the structural cues, the signals, and the adjustments that ripple across borders and industries. Understanding these dynamics allows viewers to see beyond the surface, to anticipate consequences, and to appreciate the complexity of global relationships. As you reflect on this, consider the implications for policy, trade, defense, and diplomacy. The balance between public posturing and private negotiation determines the resilience of partnerships. What appears as disagreement may, in fact, be strategic calibration. What seems minor may influence global outcomes. So, follow the developments closely. Track the signals. Watch for shifts in tone, posture, and coordination. This is not background noise. This is the underlying current shaping the future. We have seen headlines before. We have seen statements, disagreements, and political theater. But what matters most is the subtle, systemic, and structural story unfolding beneath the surface. It is here that real change takes place, quietly, yet powerfully. The real lesson is that alliances, even the strongest, are dynamic. Trust, predictability, and global signaling determine stability. Observers who recognize patterns, anticipate consequences, and understand structural implications gain insight into the future direction of cooperation, strategy, and policy. So stay attentive. Look beyond what is immediately visible. Understand that this is a story of signals, not noise, of structure, not spectacle, of long-term consequences, not momentary drama. History rewards those who perceive patterns, not just headlines. Now, share your thoughts below. Is this temporary tension or the early signal of structural change? Subscribe for updates, analysis, and breakdowns that reveal the real story behind the headlines. Because the world rarely changes overnight. But when it does, the effects are profound, widespread, and lasting.